Hello and welcome to the Cheese Room podcast. This is our instant review of the Champions League match against AC Milan. With me immediately, I have the lovely HG, and at some point, Jack is going to be joining us when he's finished doing whatever he's doing. Don't know. He'll be here
it's
soon.
dinner time. It's dinner time over there in North Carolina, wherever he is. So he's got to keep his significant half happy before he comes and talks about the thing that he really cares about.
But just going to ask you, HG, how are you? How have you been?
I'm good. I'm good. I mean, we
good.
lost, so I'm not thrilled. There were moments in the second half, especially where I was starting to thrash the sofa in frustration. But I'm not too downhearted. It's not the first loss we've had in a while, so I'm used to it now.
Right, so for everyone watching, I have notes. I made notes. I have 4 pages of notes. No one can read my handwriting. That's my dad's fault. He also has bad handwriting. So, what did you think of the lineup, HG? Was it pretty much as we expected it to be, sort of thing?
Yeah, I think we all knew it was going to be 3-4-3. I think we've seen it so far this season that Longley gets played in Europe over Davies, not all the time, but often. And the rest of the team, thanks to injuries, kind of picked itself. I wasn't surprised to see Emerson Royal start over Pedro Porro. Maybe there were others who thought that Porro should have another game, but an away game in Europe, even without goals, it's still it's that old adage that you can't win a tie in the first leg, but you can definitely lose it, kind of thing. So I was pretty okay. Maybe there's a couple of things I might have done differently. I think a lot of people are sick of seeing Son start these games, as awful as that sounds. But otherwise, I think it was pretty much what we should have expected.
Well, it's funny. The second thing I wrote pre-match was time for Richie to play. Oh, here we go. Welcome, Jack. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you guys?
We're good. Lovely to see you here.
You've got a new background, Jack. Where are you now?
Same place. I got tired of I do a lot of business meetings from this room, and I put a divider in there and hung some stuff up, make it a little more personal look.
Well, I like it.
Looks lovely. So I was just asking HG what he thought of the lineup. What do you think, Jack? Was it pretty much what you expected, sort of thing?
Yeah, I was thoroughly disappointed and not surprised.
Could we use that as a euphemism for the entire Spurs fan experience?
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Yep. No, I mean, of course, the one person I was really hoping that might get a change was Son, but Kulu was worse tonight. So I guess you could have gone either way with that. Give Richie a chance, who hasn't seen the field much. So, but no, it wasn't surprising to me at all.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hoping that maybe Richarlison would get a game over Son, or either of you feeling the same way. It seems like you both kind of feel that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, I think we all think that Richarlison is better down the middle anyway. So having him out on the left, he's obviously a different kind of player, but when Son's being asked to hold the ball up as much as he is, and he struggles desperately at it, it's painful to watch him even try. And you know that Richarlison likes that part of it. He would be up for the battle much more than Son is. Son is, I think, almost more interested in where the defender is than where the ball is when the ball's played to him. And so there's a stylistic change that doesn't suit Son. But I think Richarlison he's not done much in a Spurs shirt to deserve it. But the fact that Son has been consistently poor means that we just want to see him. We want to see Richarlison play in a position that he's played for Everton, that got him the move to Spurs, that made us pay a lot of money, and we haven't seen it really at any time this season, and that's a shame.
Actually, this comment leads brilliantly into my next question. Did he? I'll get a Jack on this one. Did you have any concerns over Sarr and Skipp starting in the midfield for us today?
Not any huge concerns. I had said in our either the Patreon chat or the WhatsApp chat that we've got going on that when Bentancur went down, I was like, let's not panic, let's all take a breath, because it's very possible that Skipp and Sarr can do a job. And Milan, I won't claim to be any sort of expert on them or Italian football, but just from what I could gather and what I had seen, I wasn't terrified of the midfield or anything like that. So I thought both of them could hold their own because they both will battle. Neither one of them shy away from anything. They're game. They don't mind taking it to the opponent. So I wasn't overly concerned. Now, if you have to run that midfield out over and over and over again in Premier League, that might cause some problems. But no, I thought that midfield was not my concern going into this game.
Yeah, I can't say it was mine either. My concern was another area of the pitch, which we'll get to momentarily. But, I thought we started the game off kind of okay. I didn't think we were too terrible. Liao, I think that's how you say his name, was obviously causing us some troubles. But, okay, let's just go to the elephant in the room. Okay, I'll ask HG. Who was at fault? Actually, I'll ask both of you, but I'll ask HG first. Who was at fault for their goal? Because it came early.
Who was at fault? Was anyone? I mean, I know Romero went up for the ball and he lost the header. I guess I'm annoyed at him for not rolling around in agony because he may have got a free kick had he done that. It's a very, Argentinian thing to do. Dier didn't really close Theo down, so if I was going to give him, he's probably the most responsible, I would say. But after that, I think it was just, they were the only 3 shots that Milan had for most of that first half, and they came in 6 seconds. To blame probably Dier, but it just felt one of those things that the ball was going to bounce their way twice, and we end up going 1-0 down.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Jack, or do you have a different?
Yeah, I think I'd like to watch it back again. My initial reaction was a gut one of why Force didn't come out initially. Once the header was lost, he's a big, huge player. Does he come out? And I just don't know if he's quick enough. So I'd like to see the distance he would have to cover. So I'm a little ambivalent on that, on faulting him. He made 2 good stops after that, quite frankly. So I'm not going to fault him there. And to your point, HG, I'm sorry. It's not an obvious foul, but if that is a defender on an attacker in the exact same situation, maybe not in the box, but certainly open field, that is a foul every time. Every time. No. And given the ghost foul that Decky gets called on Theo later, where Theo leaps over him and falls down, again, the referee was atrocious. We all know that both ways, by the way. He was poor for both teams. But I don't know if you're right. It might not have been really anyone's fault.
I don't think it was a foul from Theo, if I'm honest. I think he went up for the ball. He was running for it. He jumped high. Romero is kind of backtracking, so he can't get the same leverage. But I'm upset that an Argentinian defender doesn't go to ground holding his head. Because
that's fair.
I know he's being honest, but it was just one of those things where he probably knows he's not going to win. And they could have that jump ball another 10 times, and the ball doesn't go where it went, where it basically fell at Theo anywhere, and it fell perfectly for him. And of course, he landed on his feet, so he had the chance to go forward, but. I feel like one of those Spurs fortunate things where it's just unfortunate in every way, but it will hurt Spurs no matter what.
It's funny you mentioned the officiating today because right before the game kicked off, the commentary mentioned that it was his first ever Champions League knockout game he was officiating. And you could be forgiven for thinking it was the first game he'd ever officiated. I don't want to slander, referees because I'm not Jose Mourinho, but am I alone in thinking that was a horrendous officiating performance in that game?
I think what annoyed me the most is that clearly he wanted to let play go. There were a few challenges early on, and you thought, okay, this is going to be a battle. I was trying to explain to my wife when she walked in about half time that it felt like I was watching a wrestling match with a football in the middle of the ring type thing. It just, there were lots of battles going on, and he seemed to let things go, which I don't always mind. I mean, there were lots of 50-50s that were full-blooded, and the ball would bounce out in any direction, and then the next player would go in and do exactly the same thing. But what annoyed me is that we all knew that when the first card came, it was going to set whatever tone for the rest of the game. And so, of course, it had to be a Spurs player with Romero to be challenged. But there were lots of niggly things in that first half that accumulated them, like we've seen most referees do. Then there would have been a couple of yellow cards. I think he let it go too far in the first half, and it meant that the game was just a bit. I mean, it felt like watching 1980s second division football, where it was very kick and rush. There's a lot more skill. It felt like a very basic game of football where people were running and they were tackling the ball and the pitch was bad. But rather than let's say a Champions League with, officially, I guess, 2 of the 16 best teams in Europe.
I was frustrated with, I don't know, how do you pronounce the center back, the Danish center back? Skar?
Share.
I mean, there were full, I mean, like you're saying, wrestling, rugby type tackles on Kane. There were, and one he clad right through him. And I guess I'm used to Premier League. Those are cards. After the second or third, you usually see a card. And I had just concluded, I officiated for many, many years. And I can remember being a little disorganized, particularly in my youth, and numerous games showing up and realize, oh, I don't have any cards on me. So I got to really make sure I stay on top of this match because I don't have any cards with me. So I kind of felt that way about the official. He forgot him in the dressing room and didn't bring him out because I thought that most matches there would have been a card on that center back after at least the third tackle to the ground.
And he knows what he's doing the whole way. I mean, that's it. It's old school defending. He's not the quickest himself. He's not the youngest. But it was all about I can't give Kane time. I mean, I understand why he does it. If you're the defender, you want to be there so Kane can't look up and pick the pass, can't do the things. But you also, as a defender, you can't hold him. You can't make it impossible for him to move. And the referee either didn't care. And then when you see in the second half the booking that died for nothing.
Yes.
Then you think, hang on a second, if that had been consistent, then was it Share would have been sent off after 20 minutes.
I just assumed you or someone had somehow gotten up some money into his pocket to say, hey, 1 yellow card on Dier and he misses the next match.
Dave, that'd be Davo's bribe, if anything. I mean, like I said to you earlier, HG. It was like watching Sean Dyche versus Neil Warnock with a bit more skill that game, wasn't it? I mean, it was very much
blood. It was blood and thunder without the massive sliding tackles, and bar the one that Romero did. But the football that I grew up playing, where you really enjoyed crunching tackles, there weren't really many of those. But it was a scrap. The ball would bounce out and you'd go again, and it was all tag team football. I mean, it was just mental. I haven't seen a game like that in a very long time. I mean, even if I watch lower league football, chances are it doesn't quite like that. But for a midfield, as an old school fan, it was kind of fun, and we didn't shy away from it. I mean, you'd think that with 2 youngsters in the middle of the pitch, that maybe they would have shied away from it, but they kept the whole game, and then and it wasn't just. It wasn't just about effort. They had quality on the ball. They were put under pressure, but their first was generally very good, and they could move the ball and get away from the pressure. So it was an interesting game to watch. I probably would have enjoyed it if I was as a neutral, but as a Spurs fan, it just felt like can it just rebound our way, because that's how their goal came, and I don't feel like we ever really got that was it run of the ball. Is that what they say in England? I forget anymore.
Yeah, I think for me I think that's a good description, particularly that first half. And we weren't technically good. We missed a lot of opportunities. Our final ball again is poor. The front 3 plus Perisic just can't connect. But what I was pleased with is the effort to regain possession. I thought that the surround hunting the ball in packs was something I really did see and saw. Rubber the green, okay. Was what was encouraging, because you didn't see that in a lot of matches this season. So that was really good, encouraging. It stayed that way. They really did fight for the ball. They just technically weren't very good for most of it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of hunger on the pitch, I have to say. And from my opinion, I thought Skipp and Sarr both played very well. They played like significantly more mature players. We know Skipp had that season in the Championship. He's not afraid of a challenge. He's not afraid of a 90s England 4-4-2 proper slide challenge, right? And Sarr isn't a lightweight either. He's better than Conte, right? But it did watch like that. It threw me back to my days of playing. youth football where my football coach used to chain smoke on the touchline and scream at us the entire time, and we would play 4-4-2 every week. I mean, I had nostalgia trips to that, but
I think, like, as a Spurs fan, like, we've only really seen Oliver Skipp play for Spurs under Nuno. It feels like,
yeah,
right. That's when he was in the side, and we played a midfield three, and it was quite a basic three. Like, Hojbjerg was there, and the two of them would kind of shuttle from side to side, and you'd seen occasionally Skipp, being a bit more progressive and being able to move the ball forward, but obviously, he hasn't played that much under Conte because of injury. So to see him come out there and both of them really, but to play as well as they did, like, I think it's that kind of the mentality. Like, they weren't going to get beaten today. They were going to do everything they could, and if the skill level wasn't there, they would still run. They would still again, pretty much do whatever they can. And when you think about, that sounds awful, but when you think about someone like Sessegnon who doesn't do that, right, that seems very head down all the time. Like Sarr and Skipp, they never hid once. They looked as if they believed that they belonged at that level, and they were going to give as good as they got. And if it wasn't good enough, fair enough. But they weren't worried about any consequences. And I guess at that age, I mean, they're still both very young, but at that age, in a Champions League game, I mean, I know AC Milan aren't the best side in Europe right now, but still, like, you've got to approach the game and say, I belong at this level, and I think both of them did.
Yeah, I thought they were both exceptional. I think our weaknesses came in other areas of the pitch. I mean, the question I want to ask both of you is, I'll go to Jack first on this. It seemed to me, at very least, we approached the game to not lose more than we approached the game to win. Do you think that's a fair assessment of how we approached the game?
I think that's generally yes, I think that's fair, and I think that's generally the tactic when you are the second leg is at home and you're going into an environment like that. I think the main thing is don't do anything stupid, don't concede early, which they did. But to be fair, and I think we agree, it really wasn't just like some sort of ridiculous breakdown. It was just the rub of the green or whatever. It was a good bounce. And the smallest guy on the pitch wins a header on the line, right? So but after that, I thought that they were still good. The shape was good. We didn't see any of these 30, 40-yard diagonal balls trying to fit through 3 or 4 players into the center, finding Kane. They were a little bit shorter passes, a little bit more compact. Still frustrated because it's the same buildup. There's no variation. We got 2 different midfielders in there, but it's the exact same pattern of play. But for the most part, they weren't giving the ball away too much. The only time it would get away is obviously when it got to the front 3. Son trying to hold it up. Kane was very average. He gave it up a few times. But there were few. There were I don't want to say 3 or 4, but not a ton of just horrific giveaways in our third. So yes, they were more composed and more calm. And I think, quite frankly, Sarr and Skipp get credit for that, because they showed for the ball, they were comfortable, and Sarr is amazing to me. He, even in traffic, someone on his back weaving through, he just glides a little bit. He kind of reminds me a little, as a very poor man's young Dembele, in that he doesn't seem flustered, even in traffic. It doesn't look like he's trying to get rid of it as quickly as he can. He's like, okay, where's the opening? I'm not going to lose this ball. I can continue. Oh, there it is. There's my out ball. And he seems very calm and composed, and much more so than Hojbjerg, who seems to want to get rid of it very quickly when he's caught deep. But overall, yeah, I think they were reasonably good shape. Just the technical ability to find that last ball, and how many attacks went down the left-hand side and died, I can't even count anymore. But it was the execution, even if the pattern of play was the exact same, and Milan didn't do a lot to stop. I think our build-up was pretty good overall.
I have to say...
sorry, James, go.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, HG.
I just felt in the first half we were the better team, but if you'd have asked me who had the most threat, I'd have said AC.
That's true. Statistically,
they had Theo, and because they had Leao down that left-hand side, if they were actually on song, like, I think Leao probably could have beaten us all by himself had he really wanted to, because his speed felt like it was another level compared to anyone else on the pitch. But thankfully they didn't really get it going down that left-hand side, bar the goal. But that was kind of like we were in control to an extent, but there was no threat. I don't feel like the keeper really made a save in the first half. Certainly nothing difficult, and that's probably for the whole game. And that's the problem with Spurs, is that like if you win the midfield battle and your defence can play up high, which we did, for a lot of that first half, then brilliant. But you have to be able to use the ball going forward, and I don't feel as if their back three were flustered at all during the game. I mean, I don't feel like I heard. The only time I heard was it Theo's name was when he missed the sitter towards the end. Otherwise, he against Kulusevski was a good battle, but he basically won it. Kalulu against Son was a good battle, but the defender won it. And I think the same is probably true for Kane against Sarr. So it's frustrating, but I don't know.
Yet
I'm
they
not sure
continue to play. I mean.
This laugh.
Well, I mean, that's all Conte is.
Sissoko with quality. That's an interesting concept.
Well, I mean,
I understand it's funny, but like Sissoko and Sarr do not. They can't even really share the same stratosphere, because Sissoko was like watching me play football. Like, balls at my feet, crap, gotta watch the ball, just kick it away. And like Sarr's passing off either foot is secure. Like he can happily just, I say knock it. It doesn't look he's really trying, but he can clear yards with his weaker foot with very little backlift. Like, I feel like there's almost like a Huddleston style of like, he's comfortable striking the ball. Like, he's not the same type of player that Huddleston was. But when the ball's at his feet, I mean, you talked about it earlier, Jack, like, you don't feel like he feels like he's under any pressure. He can kick it off either foot, he can look around to see where people are. And for someone, I mean, 20 and a half, like, he how do I put this? If we went 3-5-2, he would definitely be in my starting 11. If we stay 3-4-3, I may well have him over Hojbjerg. It'd be him and Bentancur, because I just think his ceiling is so high that if he gets used to playing regularly at this kind of level and realizes that he's more than good enough to do so, we have an absolute.
I agree.
I agree. I watching Skipp and Sarr today, I have to say I think both of their ceilings is higher than Hojbjerg, and that's not slander against Hojbjerg. Because I think he's a good player, but I look at both of them, and Sarr especially, that guy can be an exceptional football player, and he's, 20? He's the same age as me, which is quite depressing. But, the question I was going to bring up was, we had a lot of, you mentioned the first half earlier, HG. We had a lot of deep free kicks, particularly in the first half. Should we have made more of those opportunities? Because Milan defended very deep on those set pieces. If we were better at set pieces, would we have maybe scored from one of those free kicks?
I think with better delivery, anything could have happened. They were defending so deeply that, like, all you need to do is get any kind of get there in front of the defender, and who knows what will happen. I think there was one where we did that and it went straight at the keeper, but had it gone either side, it's in, right? Because at that speed,
correct.
It frustrates me that it's Son taking them, because at no point did I ever feel comfortable that he was going to get it in an area where it needed to be. And you need to have some kind of consistency. Every now and again, they're on the money, but unfortunately nowhere near often enough. And so like we could and maybe should have got something from those situations. But it just frustrates me when we get like I understand if the free kick is 10 yards inside their own half, like, all you can really do is lump it into the box, which is no one's idea of a wonderful system. But I'd rather see that than have us play it 10 yards back and then back to the keeper, and we try and build from the other side of the pitch. All we're going to do is get to the point where we were with the free kick, and then we're going to try and play it forward to someone to beat. That frustrated me. Like, if you have the chance to put it in the mixer, and especially in a game like today with such a scrap, we should have done it. That's what frustrated me more than anything else.
Yeah, I think that's actually, I thought maybe I have to again. I won't rewatch it because it's not a good enough match. But I really felt like several of Son's first half free kicks were very good and whipped in with pace and an angle to get something on it. But only one, you're right, did actually get on frame. But yeah, I'm with you. I feel like we made a lot out of the fact that we hired the world's greatest set piece coach, who in the first half of the season produced a lot of actual goals from set pieces, and it seems like that person left the club, because now even in the end of the match, you need a goal. It's the last minute of stoppage. You've got a ball that you're right. All you really can do is probably lump it in. And then what happens is it goes 3 square passes across the pitch, not with a lot of pace. And then eventually it's crossed in to nobody from Perisic. And I don't understand where the set piece creativity has gone, because it seems to have completely dried up. You can't tell me that every team we're up against has figured out all 4,138 set pieces that supposedly is in this guy's locker, right? So I'm not sure what's happened, because it just seems our threat from set pieces has just disappeared.
I have to say I agree.
I just say I did not put that comment up. I don't know who did, but it wasn't me. But thank you, Michael.
It was Michael Bennett. So
Yeah.
I think we could have that comment just stay all show, because I think it'll be applicable for whatever.
Let's leave it up. If someone wants to say "well said, James" as well, that would be appreciated.
I'll jump on my phone.
You
give me an idea.
At some point, you have to play the percentages a little bit. I feel like Mourinho here, but when Man United needed a goal 5-6 years ago, and they just threw on Fellaini and basically said, you know what, he's 6'5", he might win a header. Like, there is something to that. Right, like obviously we don't have a Fellaini, but we do have someone like Davinson Sanchez.
Yeah, I was going to say, but Savage did.
It's all well and good to score the goal, but we're not good enough for the goals we want to score with our plan A. So let's do something different. There was one time, it must have been the second half, and you finally saw the cross come in. I think it was Longley who crossed it, and there's no one in the box, because they've all done their little intricate work to try and, on the right hand side of the pitch, I think it was, and they got some space. They moved it back to Dier or whoever, who it out wide to Longley. Longley looks up. He's got a bit of time to pick someone, but there's no one there, because the runners haven't come from midfield, and Kane and Kulusevski or whoever it was still on the right hand side. And that's the thing with Spurs. If you're going to try and play the way we are, people need to keep their positions. You can't all just follow the ball, and because today felt like such a scrap, I guess we needed to, but it was unfortunate that whenever we did get a bit of time on the ball, which wasn't often, we wasted it. We didn't have any idea what to do with it, and if the ball is sat still because you've got a set piece, just kick it into an area, right? Like make the goalkeeper think that he can come out and get it even though he can't. Something like that. But
Dier had a free look, unmarked free hitter, 6-7 yards from goal, hit him in the chin.
So I don't know. It's like again, I don't want to see Tottenham play that way, but there are occasions when it's not a bad idea, right? Yeah, we'd all like to see Spurs play attacking football on the front foot, high press, the things we got to know and love under Pochettino. And what we're seeing is, okay, we win a free kick in midfield, and then we end up, and it's more likely that Forster's going to kick it than Kane, and that I can't watch.
I've just seen a comment which makes me feel like I might have to be sick. I'm going to bring it up, and get your sick bags ready, gents. Tuchel at Spurs. I apologise, I'm about to throw up after reading that. No, we won't discuss that.
James, I would take him over Conte. Conte
Yeah,
doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be there.
Why would Tuchel want to be here, though?
Well, I mean, that's another good question. I mean, maybe he doesn't. But I just, he's available, and everyone knows the stories about Tuchel, always playing with Tottenham when he was a kid because he liked the name. As if that means a great deal, I don't know. I like Sparta Rotterdam I've always liked that name for some reason. And they play at a ground called the Car, which is pretty cool.
Send in a CV, HG. You never know. You might get a scouting job based off Football Manager. You get your Football Manager CV up a bit.
Well, I think tomorrow we'll probably get into that a lot more on the show that we're going to go through the financials and debate the Enic Levy situation, bring in the Conte and the manager tomorrow's show, because I think that's going to be a topic. Because you're right, the direction of the football club. I mean, there's a lot of talent in this club, whether it's out on loan or it's on the squad right now. There's enough talent to be a very competitive team, but you have to have a strategic direction of what kind of football you want to play, what kind of manager, what kind of system, and we just don't have the right people in charge at all right now to do anything. And and that's probably been the biggest problem with Levy's leadership has been some sort of consistent strategic direction over the course of his career.
Yeah, everyone. We will have a show tomorrow, Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Going to be going over the financials. Going to be a great show. Please do tune in. I'm not quite sure who's going to be on it, but I promise you it will be fantastic. So please watch that. And also the podcast is being recorded tonight, I think. So that should be out soon as well. That's going to be fantastic. That'll be out tomorrow. That's going to be fantastic as well. Give that a listen on all good streaming services. But the show will be here on YouTube tomorrow at 9 o'clock. It's going to be brilliant, discussing the future of the finances. And it will be more articulate than me after watching that hour and a half of football. But anywho, back to the football.
Can I just bring up a comment here?
Go ahead.
I found this earlier, right? The body language of the players coming up. Like, I didn't see this, okay? Not really. At the corner of my eye, I saw Son kind of trudge out because I feel like we were first out. But if that's true, if the body language of the players is kind of like, I've just listened to 15 minutes of some bloke yelling the same nonsense that I know doesn't work, right? Which I can imagine would be a team talk under Conte right now. That screams Tim Sherwood. Right, I mean, we all remember when, I think it was at Anfield and Jan Vertonghen before the game is like leaning on the back of the wall, one foot on the other, like no Premier League game on his mind at all. And I think I saw in the week that he liked some tweet where someone had a go at Tim Sherwood's intelligence and Jan Vertonghen. Like, if that's where the players are, where they're just not, they know that Conte's not going to be around, they don't really care. Conte's just trying to pay what he thinks are his best players because it's going to save his reputation. That is a massive, massive problem because we do have. I feel like we have a good team of players, of individuals, but we haven't got a team out of them yet, and that is down to Conte. So if their body language is as bad as that comment seems to think it was, then this could be a long 3 months.
Well. It's funny you say that. I watched a video recently, actually, about former Juve fans, Inter fans, and one of the scum clubs in London fans talking about Conte. And the interesting thing was, from listening to even players who played under Conte, he always does the same things. And in the first season, the first 2 seasons, him, throwing bottles and going ballistic over things works. But when he's doing it, for 2 years straight, you kind of just go, oh, whatever sort of thing. I do, to some extent, wonder if maybe that's a little bit happening. Because it seems to happen at every club he ever goes to. He was at Juve for 3 years. He was Italy boss for a few years. International management isn't quite the same. He was Chelsea boss for 2 years. He was Inter boss for 2 years as well, I think. It's telling perhaps that if he's never changed his management strategies and it always seems to, peter out after 2 years, that potentially is a worrying sign for the club.
I don't work in motivation. I mean, I'm a teacher, so I guess I do. I hope I am.
Do. You definitely do.
Yeah, but the point is that no matter who was yelling at me, that wouldn't work for me.
No.
Right? Like you can put the fear of God up me, and I would probably within 2 minutes think you are not worth listening to. Right? I do not respond to that at all. Now, obviously, elite footballers, elite athletes are maybe they are more focused on, maybe he's right. I'm just gonna, whatever kind of percentage I can get out that's extra. But yeah, like if it's the same message again and again and again, regardless of who you're talking to, that doesn't work at any level. I mean, I think we're all smart enough to know that you can't treat everyone the same. You can't do the same thing again and again, because even if it worked last time, doesn't mean it's going to work this time. Like, I'm always there's a joke I remember someone telling ages ago where it's like, if a husband on Valentine's Day, it's probably appropriate, right? Like if a husband makes a mistake, we've all learned from movies that go out and buy some flowers or some chocolates or whatever, and you bring them home to your wife, and she's, oh, thank you, I see that you're sorry, da 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 da. And deep down, the bloke is thinking, okay, she's happy. It sounds awful, but she's happy, job done, right? And then 2 weeks later, the next thing happens, and you do something else you shouldn't have done. And you think, okay, well, I learned from last time, I'm going to do it again. And you come in with some flowers, and your wife's like, you think you can buy me with flowers? Well, yes. Because it worked last time. So what, you're trying to tell me that it's not going to work now? That's like watching Spurs. Like it's like Conte is like, well, it worked last time. It worked at Juventus, and it worked at Chelsea. And it worked last season at Spurs. I'm just going to keep doing it. And maybe as a player, that he responded to that more than anything. It's kind of it's almost like Roy Keane-ish as a player, but it's just I don't know. You would hope that there are different personalities that don't. You would assume they know this, right? Not everyone is the same.
Well, yeah, it's very old school management, right? It's Mourinho in the 2000s. Conte doesn't. At least Conte doesn't come out and slag off players in public, but it is very Jose Mourinho, and I feel like that doesn't really work anymore. Maybe once in a while. Funnily enough, going to give an anecdote. I play for my university's esports team, and for this particular esport, they had the World Championship. It's been going on since last week. It's going on today. A guy who is like the Lionel Messi of this is now a coach. He was doing his, halftime talk, as it were, and you got to listen to it. And every talk I've heard him do was very calm. Like, we've got this guy sort of thing. They're to quote, they're fucking shit. We're so much better than them. It was that sort of thing, right? Today, and he's been the coach for 6 months, was the first time I heard him actually shout at them. And that kind of said something to me. What it said to me was, in regards to football management and how this relates, you've got to have more than one gear. At times, you have got to just say to the team, look, guys, it's not going great, but we are better than them. We can win this game. We've got some issues here and here and here, but if we just tighten that up, we've got this. Come on, guys, we've got this. But other times, okay, maybe the shock tactics you do have to do, right? Like, what the fuck are you doing sort of thing? Why aren't you doing this? Like, come on, we're better than this. But to me, it always feels as if Conte is always doing the we're better than this and throwing bottles and throwing a bit of a tantrum, when in reality, that should be reserved for specific situations, right? Because if you do that week in, week out, like if someone shouts at me, like after the first 1 or 2 times, I'm just going to tune it out. Like, I don't care, right? It's like if Gordon Ramsay was in the room, I'm just going to think, piss off, mate. I'm going to enjoy my terrible meal. You can go away. I don't care, all right? Whereas if Marco Pierre-White comes in and just says, that's so disappointing, then I'm going to feel a bit bad about it. So, I do worry with Conte's man management in the long term a little bit, I hope that made sense.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with anything either of you said. But if we bring Conte into this, as well as you can throw in Mourinho, and you can call them kind of one-trick ponies, that they have plan A and no plan B, or maybe not great man management or whatever. What is the difference, right? Though at Inter, at Juve, at Chelsea, and all those other clubs, what is the difference? Those managers actually won things. They still got trophies. What is it? And this is an honest question. What is it about Spurs? Because I would say it's pretty obvious, unless we just get a great run, a couple of good lucky bounces and rub of the green or whatever in the FA Cup. We ain't winning a trophy this season with Conte, and he's not going to be the coach next season. So it'll be the one place he's gone since his Division C or B existence in Italy, that he hasn't won a trophy. And again, it's Spurs. It's second manager who's always won something and doesn't win something at Spurs. So what is it? I mean, there's got to be a common denominator, right?
Yeah, the people who go to the stadium, not the people who watch on some dodgy stream at home or in various parts of the world. I mean, yeah, I don't want to believe that the club is cursed, but considering. No, but if you think about all those American franchises in whatever sport, there's always been some curse, right? The Babe Ruth curse took how many years? Like almost 100 years to be broken.
I grew up a Cubs fan.
To have that, right? Oh, well, there you go. Okay, so like British football doesn't seem to have that. But if a club is cursed, is it like what happened at some point in like 1991, where the football gods decided never again? Right, like you can have some dodgy cup that you win in like the last minute, or you win it in extra time, and no one really cares, right? So like, you can't have anything good. We'll give you the crumbs. Like what happened to Spurs for that to be the case? Because like obviously there's a whole bunch of Spurs fans out there who remember Spurs winning trophies quite regularly, and there are a lot of Spurs fans who don't remember it at all. I mean, you've got to be 30 to remember an FA Cup, 35 probably. It's
That would be a good memory.
I feel like how I justify it in my brain, right, is that when I was a kid there was a big five, right? Right. Manchester United, Liverpool, Everton, Arsenal, and Spurs, and I feel like in the 80s one of those five teams tended to win the FA Cup and or the league, right? Liverpool and Everton I think both did double. Certainly Liverpool did. Liverpool won almost everything in the 80s when I was growing up. And the League Cup was the one that maybe, Luton beat Arsenal one year. I remember watching that when I was like 8. And that was a brilliant day out because the small team. But that's what it was, right? And even then, Spurs were probably the worst of the five when it came to trophies, but we were still winning stuff. And for most of the period, let's say, of the Premier League, right, there was a big four. And those four teams won everything mostly, right? Apart from Blackburn's odd season where their money won the league, and then the four became five when Man City got involved, and then the five became six when Spurs got involved, and so suddenly, like even if we are, in many cases, the sixth of six, that's still a worse position than being the fifth of five that we were in the 80s. So it's just much more difficult to win stuff. And yes, I know that. Swansea have won a League Cup and Birmingham have won a League Cup. But again, that's the point. It's the crumbs. It's the ones that the bigger teams have decided aren't that serious anymore. They've got Champions League football when the rich is there. They've got Premier League. That's where they're going for. And the FA Cup is kind of okay if there's nothing else. So I just... Spurs and trophies, I feel like... I don't want to think the club is cursed. I want to think it's just a sheer odds game. And that we are struggling to be the fifth of six, whereas historically, right now, we clearly are the sixth of six.
I mean, you both do, but I don't remember Spurs ever winning a trophy. When last time Spurs won a trophy, I was 5. Funnily enough, have an embarrassing story about my father, John of the Cheese Room. Apparently, he broke our sofa. During the Carling Cup semi-final against Arsenal, where we won 5-1. I don't know if that's a true story, but that's a memory in my head. So if that's true, please do tell me, Father. But that's quite funny.
Things were rough. Like in 2008? Things had been so rough as a Spurs fan for so long that we broke anything celebrating a last-minute winner.
To be fair, we beat them 5-1, so...
I know, but I broke my bed... watching Ronnie Rosenthal score a hat-trick in the FA Cup fourth round at Southampton. That was 95, because I turned off the radio at half-time and we were losing 2-0. She was like, not interested, I'm not doing this anymore. And then my mum persuaded me to watch the highlights that night and to see that we went and won, I think, 6-2 or something in the end. Like, that I celebrated because it was a shock.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is with Spurs. Like, those big moments that felt were, getting to the next level. Like we finally beat Arsenal, we finally made it to a cup final, we finally won the cup, then we got the Champions League. Those have happened relatively regularly, but that last one, a trophy that say that the fans care about, we haven't done it. The league title is, my dad was a child when we did that. My mum was not even 10. That's a long time ago. but it feels like certainly the FA Cup. Yeah, should have happened.
I mean, I remember I was in secondary school, so I must have been 16, maybe. Yeah, I was 16 and watching in my grandparents' dining room, watching Spurs Ajax in the Champions League semi-final, seeing the first goal go in and go, this maybe. Watching the second goal go in and go, then thinking, oh no, we're not going to get it. Then seeing the third goal go in and trying to hold in me screaming at the top of my lungs because my grandparents were asleep. And I'm just standing there in their dining room doing this, right? So I get it because that was a shock to me. That was new. This was a new height. And indeed, in the City game before that, I turned the game off when Sterling scored, and I texted my dad saying, "Fuck this! I'm going to go bloody watch Game of Thrones or something." And he said, "No, turn it back on. Turn it back on. Trust me." I'm like, "Oh, all right, I'll turn it back on." Oh, it's been disallowed. Yeah. But again, I've never watched a team I support score a goal, win a trophy. Right?
Feels that way.
We're not quite that bad. Not tonight, at least. And as a Wales fan, it's pretty turgid. Sorry, there are people shouting in my university hall. If they're drunk already at 11 o'clock, that's a pretty weak effort, isn't it? Come on.
It is Tuesday.
Jack, the funny thing is, all the best student nights are in the week. Like, I went out last night with my mate who hasn't been out clubbing because he hasn't been well. Went out last night. Thursday's another good night. All the best nights are in the week. There's nothing good on the weekend, funnily enough.
Well, it's cheaper. I know. I get that. But it's that's fair. I only bring up the point. I didn't mean to derail us into the lack of trophies, other than the fact that we've hired serial winners who aren't going to win anything at this club, and I don't think it's a curse. I think I've never seen Tottenham win anything because when they won the League Cup, I was barely cognizant. I was just getting involved, and it really didn't mean much. My my oldest memory of disappointment was watching Chelsea beat Bayern from a bar in the Bahamas, and still not completely 100% grasping what had just happened. As my son was explaining to me, we were fourth, but now we just got bounced, and that's a big, he's having to explain it to me, and I was starting to catch on. But that's really kind of where my memories begin. So no, I've never really seen Spurs win anything, obviously, but I just point out that maybe there's something structural. Maybe there's something. It's not facilities. We'll get into this probably more tomorrow night, but there's definitely some things going on that just seem to prevent this club from getting over the top of the hill.
But
feel like, sorry,
are we going to get over the top of the hill?
No, not this season. I don't think so. I feel like there have been twice, certainly in recent years, where I thought that a better manager would have got us to a trophy. Right? I don't want to use the Pochettino year, but I might a little bit. That Pochettino was rough because Chelsea went on a run that at that point we'd not seen a team do. They won 13 games in a row that year. Now with no midweek football. Liverpool. There you go, right? But the season that Champions League season, the one you talked about, where it finished with Chelsea winning the cup and knocking us out. For a lot of that season, I thought we had a really good squad. We had a really good team. We were winning lots. We went to Man City, I think, in the January, and it was 2-2, and then Balotelli got a penalty right at the end, and we lost that one. Was it? I think it was Balotelli. That team, I thought was a very quality team. And then, of course, Redknapp, the whole England job got kind of round in front of him. That was the time where I thought if we had a better manager, if we'd have had a Conte or a serial winner, then we would have got over the line in some respect. But yeah, you need to have both. You need to have a very good side, which for whatever reason we don't have right now, and you need to have a serial winner. And we've either had a really good team and a manager that didn't really know what to do, or we've had a lesser side hoping that the manager could then push it over the line. And Spurs fans are realising that you've got to focus on the team more than anything. A manager can't... Jurgen Klopp is a great manager, but I think when you look at the trophies that Liverpool have won, bearing in mind how good they've been, they haven't won as many as you would expect because City have just been better.
Correct.
Like, that's the crazy thing. And that doesn't make Klopp a bad manager. Like, he's probably got the best he could from the players that he had. But to win stuff, it's got to happen in the perfect situation. And Spurs, sadly, aren't really that close to it.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe
I think that's
we'll
a good
win the FA
observation.
Cup if we're lucky, but I don't know. Anyway,
The only way I see that happening is that somehow this group with Conte and the staff get together and say, hey, this is our last hurrah. A lot of us not going to be here next year. A lot of us are not going to be here next year. And so let's see if we can put all our eggs in this basket and make a run. I mean, that's not what's going to happen. They're not going to give up on the other competitions. They're not going to do all that. But part of me romantically would love to see that sort of play out, just to say, okay, this is a cup with, there's not that many teams in front of us that we can't maybe get over on a single day. It's not, and that would be nice. The FA Cup obviously is there, but I have no illusions it's not going to happen, and we'll be back to square one, probably looking for a new manager, and that's not been a good pattern in the past.
I mean, I grew up with Spurs being known as being a cup team, right? Like, we were never. I don't remember a title challenge before I was 13. I mean, I got a season ticket at 14, and I don't really remember a Spurs title challenge before then. Certainly not because it wasn't even on TV. The Premier League didn't exist, so I couldn't watch it. I didn't have access to these things. So yeah, a cup team. I mean, I feel like I've seen that, right? So the idea of putting all our eggs in the basket just so we can get a trophy. Yeah, like I see the value of it, but I also think, you know what? No, I'd rather. It sounds awful. I'd rather build the club as a whole. I want the squad to be very good. I want the manager to be very good, because if you have that, then everything becomes an option. It's not just. I mean, to be fair, Poch did this too. Poch decided that domestic trophies weren't enough. They wouldn't change the club's history, and I get that. It's logical. But it meant that, in those two big semi-finals that we were probably not the favourite in either of them, we didn't get over the line. And that's what you would have needed. Like, even had we won those semi-finals, and pretty difficult game in the final too. So it wasn't as if it was there for us. We've had a couple of semi-finals where we thought, okay, like, this might be our time, but we haven't shown up or things haven't gone our way. But a lot of those semi-finals have been against teams that, strictly speaking, were better than us. And so it's for everything to fall in place. I want to worry about us. Like, is our manager doing the best he can with the squad? Are we buying the right players? And for a number of years we weren't on both of those categories. And so it might feel that we've started to turn a corner when it comes to buying players. But yeah, if the manager situation is still a problem, and it's not necessarily. I want to make a change, but I think everyone looks at that and says, regardless of whether you think Dier is good enough, right? And I think most of us think he isn't.
No.
Like, are we doing the best with what we have? And I don't believe we are. If the system is, I'm only ever going to do this, then I think our players have shown that they're not massively going. Son is the perfect example, right? We've taken a guy that was Golden Boot top scorer, that have scored goals repeatedly for 6-7 seasons in the Premier League, and we've turned him into someone who scores twice, like Lucas. We've turned him into Lucas. That's just, I can't believe I just said that, and I know it's true. Awful.
That is awful. That is actually a horrible slander that you've just landed on Sonny. But I get your point. I mean, you're to the point. We can go on all evening about the positioning and how you're using a player like Son, and are you putting the players in a position to succeed? And I think we can all point to how they're not. They're getting played in positions that are not. Richie, when he does play, is still never played in the position that he's probably most effective in. Son's, I counted, 4 times he got a ball out of the back expecting to hold it up against some guy who was 6'2", 40 yards from goal. So there's plenty of those examples. And so I think we're all on the same page there. Now, just to kind of, I was going to say, it's Dyer's out next game, right? He can't play in the return leg.
Yeah.
So I assume that we should expect that we'll see simply, what are we going to see? Sanchez come in and everything else be the same?
I would imagine so. Yeah, unless there are injuries between now and then.
Could go Longley Davies. Yeah, I think I'd probably rather see Sanchez almost than Longley Davies. I can't believe I just said that. But to your point, we've got some really good parts. I mean, I think that everyone's really excited about the kid in Italy coming back and playing on the left side. I think everyone's really excited about Sarr. I think everyone should be happy about a homegrown product like Skipp. I think Richie, if he gets some opportunities there, I don't know about Danjuma, but I mean, Kulu's having a bad run of games, but I don't think we worry about him. Bentancur is going to come back. ACL in today's world is not that hard to come back from. I've come back from 2 of them. It's not the worst thing in the world. I think we've got enough parts if they actually can get, at least Premier League level central defenders and a goalkeeper succession. It's not that far with the right manager. To your point, the squad's not that far away if you get the right manager. And I'm not claiming I know who that is, but it's currently that's all that's missing.
I mean, sorry, go on, James. Go.
No, you go on.
I mean, again, I don't want to talk about managers, but it is about the style of play, right? Like it feels that we have players to play a certain system, or a couple of ways, really. But I think defence, a lot of them aren't comfortable, like playing a high line, right? They don't have the pace to turn around, so they're pretty good on the ball, maybe, but you need to have a bit more pace at the back. And I don't think Romero's not really known for it. Dier's certainly not, and Longley probably doesn't seem the fastest. So at some point you need to have someone at the back who can do that, who might be your Van Dijk. Because if you're going to play a high line, you need to have some physical specimen who can do that. If the ball goes over the top, I can run around and get it, and I'm just fast enough to do that. And I feel like it's almost a stylistic fit than it is a quality. Like if we found someone who was as good as Dier but had that pace, like the whole team would look better. Right, because I wouldn't be so nervous about a ball over the top. Whereas right now, I mean, it's like Dier's very good with the ball in front of him. But as a defender, that's like if you're playing a high line, there's a good chance it's not always going to be there. So you struggle. But if you decide you want to play a certain way, like if you decide you want your wing back to be an attacking player first and foremost, and you stick them high up the pitch, then great, you can have Perisic there. If you think they're going to be a counter-attacking wing-back, where it's basically defending most of the time and then use your speed to go forward, Perisic is a terrible choice. Doesn't matter, they're still the same position in effect, but you're asking them to do separate things. And it's the same with Emerson on the other side. I feel like now that we're seeing him defend first and foremost, and he doesn't have to do the attacking because Kulusevski is standing there, it makes Emerson look a better player. Right? Because he's doing the thing he's better at most of the time. If we wanted someone to play higher up the pitch and be a wing back, you may as well have Lucas do that job, because he would be a better person to play attacking as an attacking wing back. It's not just about which players are better or can do more. It's about finding the right team, the right balance. So like the team that Pochettino built, a lot of the players were already at Spurs when he got here, but the team that he built had that, right? Like everyone says Walker and Rose got worse. Well, no, they didn't get worse. The system changed, right? Like he didn't improve Walker and Rose. He just said to them, right, your job is to basically run up and down the flank. That's it. You're not asked to cross the ball. You're not asked to create anything. Your job is to basically be
get in behind
the side of the pitch to keep the ball in effect. Like I always think about the game when we beat Chelsea at home with the 2 headers from Delhi, right? And both of those were crosses from Eriksen. And I feel like certainly one of them, but maybe both of them, Walker had the ball, and he was further up the pitch than Eriksen. But rather than trying to cross it, he just passed it back. Said, "I've done my bit. Now you do yours." And now Eriksen had the quality to do it. Like I don't feel like we weren't trying to get everyone capable of doing the same thing. It was saying, this is what you're good at. You work well with that. You need that because you need your teammate to do that because you can't do it. And we built a wonderful side, one that Delhi absolutely thrived in. And as soon as the structure went, his talent didn't go, but his ability is like he wasn't able to show it anywhere near as much.
Yeah, and I think that to your point, not adapting your structure and your style of play to the talent that you have on the field is what we've been complaining about most of this season, and it hasn't changed. So it's not going to change at this point. Because again, I even heard Seb say it the other day. I've been screaming for a 4-4-2. This team screams out, we're a 4-4-2, because then you can have Davies and Emerson as your fullbacks, and you can play your wingbacks as wide wingers, and you put Rishi and Kane, or you have some rotation up top. I mean, it screams for that, but that's not going to happen.
So what you're saying, Jack, is you're saying Sam Allardyce into Spurs. That's what you're saying.
Was it that obvious?
4-4-2.
I was really trying to be a little more subtle than that. I'm sorry.
4-4-2, no tiki-taka, slide tackles, long ball.
Well, I mean, let's Allardyce is a bit of obviously a pinata a little bit, but I mean, if you had hired Dyche, right? That's basically what you would have seen. And I'm not saying we should hire Dyche. That's not my point. But he's a competent manager to look and say, okay, what do I have? What can they do? What can they not do? Let's set them up to be as successful. But the problem is we want to be attacking flair. We want to be, we should be in a results-oriented business right now. We don't know who's going to be here next season. So let's just get as many points and get as deep as we can in these tournaments. Let's take a little Jose type styles. Like, let me make sure that we don't lose. We get beat, that's one thing, but that's not what's happening. So we're not getting the best out of the players, and because we're using a system that clearly either they don't buy into anymore, or they're forcing, again, the proverbial round peg in a square hole. So,
well, look, the question I was going to ask, to bring it a bit back to the match today, is
sorry.
No, it's fine. It's my fault as much as anyone's. I'm the one who's been drinking this evening, but you can forgive me. I had to watch Spurs today, so do you think we have a good chance of progressing? We only lost 1-0. Away goals aren't a thing anymore, so that wouldn't have affected anything.
Right.
It's only a 1-goal deficit. Do you think at home we have a real chance of progressing to the quarterfinals with the consideration that Dier is out?
I'll jump in there and say yes. There's nothing that I saw. I mean, yes. The Portuguese winger, Real, I mean, that guy is quality. But I thought Emerson did fairly well. And a number of times I thought the help from the midfield and from Decky came in and kept him as quiet as you can. And I think that Teo is a good player, but they don't have enough quality. That I think that you should be at all surprised that we get through. I mean, you could see an easy, a 1-0 home win, and now not win, 1-0. 90-minute result, and then you're playing into the extra time. I don't see anything about what I saw today that leads me to think that with a couple of bounces, maybe a little bit better shot from Rishi late, that we could easily beat that team and move to the final 8, which would be financially wonderful.
There are two comments that I read earlier which I completely agree with, which probably answer this. Right. So here's the first. I can understand that. Like, I think if you keep Leao out of the game, which we did pretty well today, exactly. Mostly, like they're not better than us. They're not massively better than us. Where we're thinking, okay, we're going to have the game of our lives to maybe get something, right? And this is the second comment from the same person. and I think both are absolutely true. Like, in a game like this, where the two sides both played 3-4-3, they're very evenly matched, as in they're not that great, right? That I genuinely think that if you've got 55,000 screaming Spurs fans at that game, that could be the difference. Like, if we treat it like a game where the fans are, like we're singing songs 20 minutes before the game starts, we are in the stadium, we are ready for the game to go, the players will see that. They will understand that if the fans are there, the players will be on it from the first minute. And I think if we do that, that gives us a much better chance. If it's not there, then it'll be another game that you could play 10 times and each side would win 5, right? It feels like those two teams that we saw tonight are both flawed. They have Leao, we have Kane. Pretty much seems to be it. And it's who manages to get their best players performing. Their goal came from nothing tonight. We could get a goal from nothing next time round. Yep. But you have to get the ball close to their goal for that to matter. And that's what we didn't really do tonight.
Not a lot of touches in the box.
No. And that's been the same thing all season, really. Like, we've done all right in certain areas of the pitch, but we can't move the ball forward on the ground, and we're refusing to just, stick it in the mixer and hope that something falls our way. And I don't want Spurs to play that way, but if that's the best we have, then I want Spurs to play that way.
Right. It's results at this point through the end of the year. Get as many points you can in the league and get as deep in these competitions as possible. Anyway, I'm done with trying to look for entertainment. I'm just at this point get through the season with a good result as you possibly can.
That's not very Spursy of you, Jack. Entertainment seems has to be the most important. But no, I agree with you completely.
Yeah, I know you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I come at this from a different sports culture, and entertainment
No.
is not first and foremost.
No, I mean it's this idea that we are lucky in the fact that we don't spend a fortune to watch our team, right? There is a different level of investment. Like, we get up at various hours of the day, but we put the time in at least. And I just I want to see Spurs win. I want to be able to go into work tomorrow and not have a bunch of 13-year-old kids giving it large because they know my team lost. They're not even Milan fans. They just know my team lost.
They're just
right.
To be fair, HG, when I was in secondary school, my science teacher in year 9, who was head of science for the school, he was a Bryan fan. And the week before, they lost 2-1 to Newcastle. And every time he spoke, I would cough under my breath, 2-1. And he got really, really pissed off and just had a go at me. And I just burst out laughing. So on the one hand, I would be one of those kids. On the other hand, if I was in your position, I'd be fired because I'd start kicking the shit out of them. So, it'd be nice if we just won these games, wouldn't it? But at the end of the day, if it wasn't for, shall we say, a combination of luck on Milan's side and potentially individual errors, it's a 0-0, and we go into the home leg neutral. And, it's not like Champions League of 5 years ago where an away goal is really important. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah, right.
So if we get a goal relatively early on in the next leg, I think we're favourite. I think we're favourites anyway, we have more than enough to beat Milan, right?
I think it is about attitude, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Milan have good players. Spurs have good players. So you then have to go out and prove it. They're not going to sit back and wait. We saw that tonight. Milan will give as good as they can, but we're at home. And you're right. Like, an early goal, and if it's back level, maybe they'll shrink a bit. Maybe they won't. But Milan won the Italian league last year, so they know how to handle pressure. And Spurs, as we talked about before, we haven't really done that with any kind of regularity. So, but yeah, it's definitely all to play for. It's weird. I asked a question earlier today. It's like, would I trade a 1-0 defeat in this game to ensure that Arsenal lose tomorrow in their Premier League game against City? And almost everyone I asked, I said yes.
I know
because
you
I
did.
knew there was because there was a second leg. It's like losing 1-0, what we just talked about, didn't matter that much, right? Because the second leg, 1 goal, okay, fine. But if it guaranteed that Arsenal would lose, I'm all about that, because I don't want them to win it. I don't want to see that again. I feel like I've got that memory out of my brain. It's been so long, I don't really remember it. I don't want to see that. So, if my deal has paid off, then perhaps I should have added in a third layer and said that we win against Milan and go through. I didn't do that. I left it all about this week.
I noticed that.
Yeah, rookie mistake.
It was. Oh well.
But if it happens, I'm going to laud it.
Yeah, you are.
I'm going to say I made that deal.
Yeah.
Look, we've been going for nearly an hour and 10, which for a post-match review, I think is pretty solid. So I'm going to say thank you to the lovely and beautiful panel. Thank you, Jack, for coming on. It's been a pleasure as ever. So thank you very
for
much.
having me.
Of course. Thank you, HG, for making my job hosting easier. I'm not a regular host, so thank you for your input.
You did really good, my friend, and I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Remember, everyone, to smash the like button, as a younger person than me might say, and subscribe. There will be a tremendous stream out tomorrow discussing the finances, which will be significantly more articulate than I was this evening. And there will be a pod, which is being recorded tonight. Might be done by now, not sure. That should be coming out soon as well. So that will be definitely worth a listen. But anyway, all I can say now is, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you fucking Spurs.